Hi everyone, this is Nathan from Snap and welcome to another of our Snap XMP webinars. Today we're going to be looking at distributing your questionnaires and forms by way of automated email invitations and reminders. It should take about 30 minutes and as ever there's plenty of resources available on our support hub which I'll be pointing you to at the end. First of all, we're going to be taking a look at the structure of the participant spreadsheet that we're going to be uploading. We'll go through the options of seeding known data into the live interview, which avoids the respondent from having to enter information about themselves that you already know. We can also seed the email invitation, perhaps personalising it with their name. As part of the email reminder setup, there's a number of things to consider with the options you choose depending upon what kind of project that you're going to be running. And then finally, we'll look at a relatively new feature which allows you to include a question within the body of the email itself. A few key benefits of distributing your survey via an email invitation, and more so how doing so within SnapXMP can add to those benefits. Targeted specific participants. So we all want data. If you have a grocery store loyalty card, the store hasn't given it to you so that you can get your savings. They've given it to you so you can collect data from you on what you buy and when you buy. They're out to collect every bit of data that they can from anyone who they've convinced to take up their loyalty card. With a survey, sometimes we do want to do the same, but more often we want to make sure that we're collecting data from the people that we want to be hearing from. And by sending direct emails, we can ensure that our data isn't being muddled or diluted with views from those people we're not interested in. It sounds harsh, but if I'm asking my partner what she wants for tea tonight, I really don't care what John at number 42 would like to eat. Scheduling. Very few of us have just one survey to run, and that's it. Many of us are running multiple surveys at once, and many more of us are running a project alongside our main role at work. By setting up a schedule of events where you can specify timelines of when the questionnaire is going to go live, when the invites and reminders will be sent out, and when the interviewing will close, it's just one less thing to be whizzing around your head. Only chasing those that need chasing. There's only one thing worse than being bombarded with emails, and that's when those emails are irrelevant to you. Reminder emails are only sent out to those people who are yet to complete the questionnaire or form. Likewise, if they've decided that they wish to opt out of that project, they're going to be removed from that mailing schedule as well. Personalisation. We often know a fair bit of information about our respondents or our participants. If this is the case, then we can plug the questionnaire with that information in advance. And there's various benefits to this. If nothing else, it means that you can personalise the invitation with their name. You can include known data about that respondent, asking them to check and maybe update it if anything has changed. And it can shorten the interview as it means that you're not having to ask things like name, date of birth, department they work in, etc. And this leads through to your analysis and reporting. Yes, data can be seeded into the live survey and that can be visible to respondent, but we can also seed it into the questionnaire and then hide those questions. That way you're able to make use of the analysis or make use of the data at the analysis stage of the project, but it's not slowing down the actual filling in of the survey. Or you could also use that hidden data to route to different sections of the questionnaire, or perhaps routing over sections which you know are not relevant. And then the dream that we're all chasing, direct email invitations and targeted emails alongside adding the right email content are proven to increase click rates and also completion rates. Okay, let's head into the software and look at how some of your projects could be set up. I'm going to be working in my webinars folder today, and I've got a couple of different surveys we're going to use, but initially looking at the course evaluation survey. So I'll just go into that one and go into the collect tab. Going to run just a quick preview. So this won't be sort of collecting the data, just to show you the sort of questions that we're going to be focusing on today. So we have some questions which we're going to seed or pre-seed later with when the course was and who your different trainers were. Some sort of ratings about the actual trainer themselves, or sort of were they knowledgeable or unknowledgeable, friendly, unfriendly, etc. We're going to make use of which course, so we know this information in advance. Plus we've then got some sort of satisfaction and important type questions. But if we scoot on to the end of the survey, we then have a demographic section which we're going to make use of. And again, some of this information I know about already. So we can potentially make options or precede some of these questions. But I'm going to close that one down. And if we take a look at the spreadsheet that we're going to be using. So to run invitations and reminders, we're going to need two key elements. We obviously need an email address because otherwise we can't send out an email to them. And we also need, which is equally as important, a unique identifier. Now, arguably the email addresses are unique to each person, but personally I would generally avoid using an email address as your unique identifier because it's quite likely that there's going to be some typos in some of these. It may well be that you end up updating some of these throughout the lifetime of your project. So we don't really want to be using something which might change as the identifier. So in my example today, I have a column called ID, and you can see my identifier is just literally a sequence of numbers. It doesn't need to be anything more exciting than that, but you can use any sort of character string, including letters, numbers and special characters. But yeah, today I've just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, etc. And you can also see I've got some known information about my different delegates, so the name, gender, what course they're on, etc. And you notice that I've got fairly logical column headers, and you'll see a bit later that it's certainly some advantages in making sure that you take some time to get your spreadsheet sort of clean and tidy before we go about uploading it. So I'm going to close this spreadsheet down, but just notice that I have got two worksheets down there. Today I'm going to initially working on the delegates one, which is worksheet number 1. Okay, so back into Snap Online, and within the Collect tab we have participants. And then because we haven't got any uploaded so far, we need to upload our participant list. And we can point off to my spreadsheet. So again, worksheet number 1, I'm just going to browse off to that spreadsheet. So it's on my desktop today. See, it's green, which is good. And in this next window is where we can choose to send invitations, link to participants and seed data within the survey. So for my example today, I'm going to be sending out invitations and potentially reminders. The address field, that's where we need to tell Snap where in the spreadsheet it's going to get everyone's email addresses from. Snap has automatically had a look in that spreadsheet and sort of had a second guess for you, so it's got it right, but obviously depending on the column headers you might need to manually choose that. And we're going to seed some data into the invitation and reminder email, so potentially we're going to make use of their first name just to personalize it. We're going to track respondents. Now this allows Snap to decide who needs a reminder email and who's already completed the survey. It also allows us to seed some data into the survey. Now, as I said, to track people, we do need to be able to identify people using a unique identifier. So in my spreadsheet, I had the ID column. I'm going to make use of that one today. We're not going to worry about a password. And as I said, we're going to seed some data into the survey to speed everything up. Now, there is an extra option down the bottom for group questionnaires. Now, we're not going to be making use of this today, but this could be useful if you're perhaps doing a larger course evaluation project where maybe you've got students attending different courses or modules throughout the year, and you want to sort of group all that together into one big project. So if that sounds like it might be something which could be useful for some of your projects, then I did a series of group questionnaire webinars last year. So have a look on our support hub, and there's the video recordings of those to watch in your own time. In terms of seeding, first of all, we have the option to seed the invitation on the reminder email. So today I'm just going to make use of the column called first name. So I can say, Dear Bob. Obviously it's up to you how much you seed into that invitation, but I'm just going to leave it as the first name today. We then have the option to seed the questionnaire itself. So questionnaire seeding. Now I'm going to start off by seeding my gender question. So again, this is the columns in my spreadsheet, and then we're matching that up with the question in the survey. So today I have question number 12. So we'll add that one in. Now this is a tick box question, so there's also the option then to map the different options. So if I click on map, now today, because I'm using the same terminology in the spreadsheet and in Snap, it's done that automatically for me. So in the spreadsheet it's females, in Snap it's females. If you're using different wording, then you would just drop down the menu and choose to match it up manually. Can do the same for course. I'm going to go with question 4. Again, another tick box question, so we're going to map. Now this time I'm using completely different wording, so I've got EXC1, and that's going to go across to Excel. I've got PPT1, which is PowerPoint, Publisher, and Word. And then going to map one final tick box question, which is the course trainer. So, which is question 2. And if we map that one, we should see that because I'm using the same wording, it's done it automatically for us. So far I've been seeding tick box question or sort of closed questions. We're now going to look at an open question. So I'm going to take the email address and map that against question 14 and add also the date of the course. It's going to go against question 1. So because these last two were open-ended questions, we don't need to worry about mapping any answers across because the text will just automatically go from the spreadsheet into that open-ended question. Okay, if I press next, we get an overview of everything we've just done. Assuming we're happy, we'll press upload. So you can see I had 4 people on my spreadsheet today, including myself. If I was to click on one of the little triangles next to one of the people, you can see which information is going to be seeded. So today my name's Simon, but I've also got the option to preview the questionnaire. So again, it is just a preview, it's not going to count towards anything. And you can see it's got the course date, it's got the course trainer, as well as which course I was on. But I'll close that one down. I could go into edit. So here we could change any of the seeding, we could change potentially the email addresses, etc., on an individual basis. Likewise, across the top, we've got options to make changes across the field. So, for example, I could potentially click on delete. And here we've got options to perhaps delete everyone who has perhaps opted out. You could delete everyone if you wanted to, but various options. Realistically, you'd probably look at using these once the survey's gone live. Now, I should say in terms of opting out, if someone has opted out, we don't need to worry about removing them from the list. They'll be marked down here as opted out, and that means they will automatically not receive any more reminder emails. Now, I've been talking about making individual edits and adding individuals. It's probably more likely that you're going to want to upload a new group of people or perhaps make some edits en masse. So if that's the case, we've got upload participants again. And then we've got a few different options. So I'm going to work backwards, starting at the bottom. So delete participants. So if you were to upload a spreadsheet, anyone on that spreadsheet which exists also in the list behind would be deleted. We've got update all participants. So this will replace everyone in Snap Online, so my list behind, with the spreadsheet you just uploaded. So this might be an option if the initial upload was perhaps a pilot list or maybe a list of colleagues who'd uploaded in order to do some testing, but now you're ready to upload the real list of participants. So it's effectively a replace all. We've got update participants. If you've made some edits to the original spreadsheet, perhaps correcting some email addresses, maybe changing some of the data that's going to be seeded in, etc., then you can reload that spreadsheet and it will update anyone's details. And then final one, which is add new participants only. So what it says on the tin, if you upload a new list of participants, they're just going to be added on the end to your existing list. And it's worth noting that when you do upload a list of participants, if they do already exist on this list, their current status, as in whether they've started the questionnaire, whether they've finished it, whether they've opted out, that's going to be unaffected. So if someone has opted out and then you re-upload them, they will still be opted out in here. Likewise, if you attempt to delete Bob, but Bob's already submitted the survey, he will be deleted from this participant list, but his data will remain in the survey. So a few different options to deal with a range of different scenarios. Today, I'm going to take the easy one, which is just going to add some additional participants. So I'm just going to quickly, before I do that, pop back into my spreadsheet. So you can see today I've got a second worksheet called Wave 2, exactly the same headers, column headers, obviously now a list of 3 additional people. how you kind of do this is up to you. I mean, today you can see I've got sort of wave 2 as a separate spreadsheet. Let's say next week I want to do wave 3, wave 4, so I might end up with lots of different spreadsheets on here or worksheets. I tend to do it this way because it keeps things nice and clean and tidy, and you can see if you're uploading people on a regular basis who's been uploaded week in, week out. The other option would just be to take all these people and just add them to the original worksheet and just upload that one. So effectively worksheet 1 just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you just keep re-uploading it. So that works exactly the same way. It just means you end up with one giant worksheet. Personally, I find it easier to keep a track when they're separate. But I'm going to close that one back down again. As I said, just making use of worksheet 2 this time. So add new participants. So this time worksheet number 2. There's my spreadsheet. So got the option to change any of my column headers if I needed to, because this could be a completely different spreadsheet, but actually it's kind of the same. So just simply upload. And you can see the extra 3 people are now on there. So let's now take a look at the invitation itself. So on the left-hand side, we've got invitations. So I'm going to add an invitation. My subject header or email header is going to be course evaluation survey. We've got options to say when that invitation is going to be sent out. Now, I'm going to leave it on day 0, which means as soon as the survey goes live, the email will be sent out. You might decide that you want to send it, I don't know, perhaps 5 days after the survey goes live. And then the main body of the email, so I'm going to say hi, and then we're going to start to personalize this. So we're going to make use of the first name. So we've got insert tag. And so again, these are just the columns in my spreadsheet. And add some main text. And then for the link itself, again, dropping down the tag menu. And we've got a couple of options. We've got Survey Link and Survey Link Auto. Survey Link would take them to a page where they would need to type in their unique ID. Now, it's quite likely they don't know what that unique ID is, and even if they did, we may as well do it all for them. So a Survey Link Auto will effectively link them and log them in at the same time. Now, I'm going to make this slightly nicer reading. So rather than the full link, I'm going to click on Hyperlink. And I'm going to use some different text. Just going to call it course evaluation. But in the background is the actual Survey Link Auto. And we'll just add some closing text of thank you. Now, if this is an external mailing list, as in it's going to members of the public rather than internal staff members, then you should really be giving people the option to opt out, rather than constantly bombarding them with emails. So I'm going to add some text now. And again, we're going to make use of the drop down and we're going to add opt out. So as before, I'll just make that slightly nicer. Now, it's worth just pointing out when someone opts out, so when someone clicks that link, it will disable them in the participant list of this particular survey. So it's not going to remove them from your spreadsheet, from your Excel spreadsheet. It's not going to remove them from any other surveys. So that's why you just need to be careful, make sure you say it's this survey. So if you're wanting to give people also the option to opt out of perhaps every mailing that you ever do, then you're going to need to give them some information on who to contact to do that. Now, at the top, we have some formatting options. In fact, what I am just going to do is perhaps make the font bigger for the rest of it. See, the main focus is them actually filling in the survey, not opting out. So we'll set it initially all to 12 or 14, but then I'm going to set the opt-out to be a bit smaller. But we've also got all sort of bold, italic, underline as well, some sort of directional options, alignment options. And one other thing that I'm going to do today is to add a company logo. So we've got the image icon. Now, your image does need to be hosted somewhere. So I've got web page which has got a logo in which I want to make use of. So I'm just going to right click and make use of the image link and paste that in. Now, do make sure you're making use of the alt text, which is all sort of important accessibility options. And just consider the fact that most people will probably be picking this email up on their phone. So we don't want to make it too big. So depending on how big your image was to begin with, you might need to resize that. Now, you do also have the option to insert HTML code. So if you have a comms team and they want to provide you with their own sort of branding via HTML, then we can just paste that in there as well. Okay, so if we save that one. Now, we do have the option to add additional invitations, and those are likely to be sort of your reminder emails, and by default they're going to go out 7 days later, but you can change your schedule for that, and obviously it's entirely up to you how many reminder emails you have. You might want to have 4 or 5, each going out a certain number of days after the last one. So just to confirm, the days before sending is the number of emails from the previously received email, but I'm going to cancel that one today. And also, just to confirm, reminder emails only go out to those who've not pressed the submit button. So you might want to consider the text of that reminder email to be based around the fact that you've not received their replies yet, rather than saying you've not started the survey yet. Now, it's certainly a good idea to send yourself a test email before you send out 30,000 emails to people. So you can send yourself a test email. I'm not going to worry about that one today. Instead, we're going to look at some of the other settings and then go live. So if I go back to the overview tab, there's a number of settings in here. We've got change invitation settings. So within here, we have the option to say when the emails arrive in people's inbox, who are the emails going to look like they've come from? So I'm going to make them look like they've come from All Good Training Team. And if someone does happen just to reply to that email, where do you want those emails to go to? Obviously, hopefully we're going to click on the link to the survey, but you never know, they might just press reply. Now, there's a few other options in here which we're going to look at in just a second, but before we do that, I am just going to go straight to the Collect tab and just make this survey live, just so it has a couple of minutes to start sending some emails out. So if I press Start Interview, and a bit of a fail-safe just to make sure that we are happy for those invites to start going out. So over the next minute or so, they'll start going out. And if we now go back to the participants and overview, just to finish off looking at the settings in here. So we've got change interview access, a couple of options here. So first of all, we've got identify participants in the response data. Here we're sort of saying that Snap is going to be tracking people. We asked Snap to track people because it's going to send out the invitations using that ID in the spreadsheet. That data, that ID, is also going to be attached to each participant when the data comes back. So each person is going to be identifiable. If you're telling people that this survey is anonymous, then you're going to need to make sure that you remove the tick from there. And that means that Snap will still be tracking them in terms of who to send reminders and who not to send reminders. But when the participant data comes back, their ID will be removed. We do just need to be careful because in my example today, I've seeded their name and potentially their email address, their date of birth potentially into the survey. So yes, you need to be careful. If you are telling people it's going to be anonymous, first of all, untick this. And secondly, make sure people aren't identifying themselves in the data that they're giving, or equally, you're not identifying it in the seeded data. Also, just I guess worth remembering that there's a difference between anonymous and confidential. They're two very different things. So confidential just means that you're not going to be using that identifiers when it comes to producing your analysis and reporting, whilst anonymous means that you don't know who anyone is anyway. So it's impossible to use that data to identify people. Other options in here include allowing the participant to fill in the survey more than once. So occasionally you have projects where you want to have multiple people filling it in more than once. And also the option to effectively make the link that they received dead after perhaps, 15 days or something. You can, of course, just set an end date for the survey, which would stop the survey for every single person. The benefit of doing this is it means that everyone has a dynamic sort of date of maybe 14 days after they received the email. Okay, but today I'm just going to leave it as identify my participants. And one other option, I can't do it at the moment because this survey is currently live, but if I was to stop the survey, then I've got the option to remove participants. So that will delete all the participants and also all the invitation as well. So that's effectively start from scratch. Okay, hopefully if I now pop into my emails, I've received an email. So there's actually two in there, one which we're going to look at in just a second, but the important one is the course evaluation survey. So if I open that one up, you can see it's come from All Good Training Team. So I've got my logo, I've got the opt-out link, etc. But more importantly, I've got the link to the actual survey. So if I click on that one, my survey opens up. Now, I've opened up the survey, but I've done nothing else. If I go back into my participant list, as I said, I am this person here. You can see it's got a status of started. If I carry on and start filling in the survey, again, you can see it's already preceded my data. Obviously, I can change this if I want to. At this stage, I'm going to close down this survey. And again, go back into my participant list and just refresh. You can see it's now changed to partial. I go back to my emails and click back on the link. It's going to take me back to where we left off. So every time you're giving a response, it's auto-saving as you go along. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about filling this in properly now. So I'll just sort of fly through and press submit. I go off to the default thank you page and one final look at the participant list. And you can see it's now changed to completed. And it's this completion status which determines that I'm not going to be receiving any more emails for this particular project. Any other status, whether it's partial, started, not started, with the exception of someone that has opted out, is going to be receiving emails as per your invitations or schedule. Okay, to finish off, I've got a relatively new feature to show you as a bit of a tag on, which allows you to include a question within the body of the email invitation itself. And this is a proven way of increasing click rates on your emails. And if nothing else, it's an easy way of just bringing your emails to life by breaking up sort of big passages of text. Now, I have previously done a whole webinar on this topic, so I'd recommend having a watch of that at some point. As in the webinar, you're going to see lots of different sort of creative ways of making use of this feature. But I'll be giving you a link to that at the end of this session. But if I go back into my main list of surveys, going back into the webinars folder, and I've got a survey in there called All Good Hospital. So if I go into the build tab, so it's quite a short survey. It's actually an NPS survey, so asking people to say whether they'd recommend us on a scale of 0 to 10. And it looks a little bit like a sort of a map control question, but if I click on it, you'll see that it's actually one of our new button style questions where each of these answers is actually just an image. So there's an image for the 0, image for the 6. Okay. But just looking around the questionnaire a little bit, I've got some text substitution where it's making use of the data from here. So if I choose option 8, it's going to put 8 out of 10 up there, and that's been done using the insert variable field. And below we've got a couple of open-ended questions, and I've got routing on these to say that if it's one of the negative options, they're going to get the how could we improve it. If they choose one of the positive options, they're going to say, great, tell us the main reason you're so happy. Let's have a look at how we're going to make use of this question, this sort of more image-friendly question in our questionnaire or in our invitations. So I'm just going to go back to the Collect tab. I'm just going to say exit without saving. And if I go to participants, I've already set up my participant list, so I'm going to go straight to the invitations. And now this is currently a live survey, so I can't edit this. So I'm going to need to just temporarily pause the invitations and then just edit. So you can see it looks very similar to what we did earlier. We've got a logo at the top. We've got some personalization for the first name. We've got the opt-out link at the bottom. But the link itself looks a little bit different to earlier. And that's because that link has been inserted using the add question rather than using the auto link. So just to show you how that's done, I'm just going to add another one. So if we add question, My survey today has just got one edition. You may well have a survey which has got a PC edition, a tablet edition, maybe a phone edition. So you might be using slightly different layouts on the phone version versus the PC version. And again, just worth considering that it's likely these emails are going to be picked up on phones. So you need to make sure if you've got an image-led survey or question, it's not one which is going to be far bigger than a phone screen. But today, I've just got the one edition anyway. And I'm going to be making use of question 1. And as before, we want this to automatically log them in. So click OK, or click Add. Okay, so I've now got 2. Obviously I don't want 2, so I'm just going to cancel out of there. Let's have a look at the resulting email. This is one I prepared earlier. So this time it's an email from All Good Hospitals. And you can see it looks a bit like a questionnaire, to be honest. This is the question 1. As I hover over the little options, you can see if at the top it says Q1 equals 3, Q1 equals 4, etc, etc. So as I click on these different, effectively individual buttons, it's going to answer the questionnaire for me. I'm going to choose option number 8. You can see it's using the cell referencing, and I've got the positive, how could we improve it? If I choose 9, great, that's excellent news sort of thing. So I do have the option to sort of change the initial selection. Now, as mentioned, there are various ways in which you could make use of this within your sort of live surveys. So do have a watch of the other webinar to find out more information on how we do that. Okay, so we've been through uploading a list of participant lists, discussing that taking a little bit of extra time to get that spreadsheet clean and tidy before you start is going to help you in the long run. We talked about the benefits of personalizing both the invitation and the live interview, allowing for a quicker response time, as well as using it for the purpose of analysis or just as a way of directing the flow of the questions. So one thing I didn't actually show you today is the fact that you can see the question and then you can simply hide that question. So it's available for analysis. It's not going to be visible as part of the questionnaire. We've of course talked about one of the major benefits of this entire process, which is the targeted of reminder emails. And then to finish off, we've introduced adding a question into the body of your email, which can really help to boost engagement. That covers everything I was planning on showing today. A key aim of most projects is, of course, to get as much engagement as possible. So hopefully you found some things today which will help to get you a few extra responses, as well as saving someone the effort of manually sending out emails and then trying to work out who on earth needs a reminder email. On screen now are a few QR codes which will take you off to some of our Support Hub pages covering the uploading of your spreadsheet, the creating of your emails, and the extra feature of adding a questionnaire within the text of your email. If you have got a spare minute or 2, I'd be grateful if you could complete our short survey using the QR code on the right. I will be sending you an email in the next day or so which will include all these links off to the different resources, as well as the feedback form and a recording of today's session. Thank you for joining us, and we will hopefully see you again soon.